Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anissa. Me and my partner, Maria. Today we will present about value, ethics, and character. First thing first, leadership and doing the right things. Leaders face dilemmas that require choices between competing sets of value and priorities. And the best leaders recognize and face them with a commitment to doing what is right, not just what is expedient. Whatever true leadership means, most people would agree that at a minimum it is characterized by a high degree of trust between leader and followers. This is Douglas McGregor. He was the one who identified the two contrasting sets of assumptions people that make about nature. It is called as theory X and theory Y. So what is theory X and theory Y? So theory X reflects a more pessimistic view of others, and managers with this orientation rely heavily on coercive external control methods to motivate workers, such as pay, disciplinary techniques, punishment, and threats. Besides theory Y, by contrast, it reflects view that most people are intrinsically motivated by their work, and rather than needing to be coerced or coerced to work productively, such people value a sense of achievement, personal growth, pride in contributing to their organizations, and respect for a job well done. And values. We move on to the values. There is a quote, or I quoted from the book. It said that constructs representing generalized behaviors or states of affairs that are considered by the individual to be important. So values are learned through the socialization process, and they become internalized, and for most people represent integral components of the self. And it is important for leaders to realize that individuals in the same work unit can have considerably different values, and especially because we cannot see values directly. And we came to the morals. There are moral reasoning, or refers to the process leaders use to make decisions about ethical and unethical behaviors. So it does not refer to the morality of individuals per se or their espoused values, but rather to the manner by which they solve moral dilemmas. So besides, value plays a key role in a moral reasoning process because value differences among individuals often results in different judgments or regarding ethical and unethical behavior. So in moral potency, there are three main components. The first is moral ownership, which is a felt sense of responsibility, not only for ethical nature of one's behavior, but also one's commitment and not allow unethical things to happen within their broader sphere of influence, including other and the organizations. And the second one is moral courage. It is the fortitude to face risk and overcome fears associated with taking ethical actions. And last but not least is moral efficacy. It is beliefs or confidence in one's capability to mobilize various personal, interpersonal, and other external resources to persist despite moral adversity. And we move on to the character-based approach to leadership. So this is Afolio, and Afolio and his associates have defined ethical leadership as having two components. The first is moral person, and second is moral manager, where the moral person is seen as a principled decision maker who cares about people in the broader society. But in moral managers, it is like ethical leaders who make ethics an explicit part of their leadership agenda by communicating an ethics and value message, by visibly and intentionally role modeling ethical behavior. Next is authentic relationship. It is grounded in the principle found in the familiar adage, to thine own self be true. So authentic leaders exhibit a consistency among their values, their beliefs, and their actions. So authentic leaders have strong ethical convictions that guide their behavior, not so much to fight doing wrong things as always try to do the right things, including treating others with respect and dignity. Besides, authentic leaders also behave as they do because of personal convictions rather than to attain status, rewards, or other advantage. One way to understand authentic leadership is to contrast it with what might be called inauthentic leadership. And then we move on to the servant leadership. So this has commonly involved a hierarchical approach to leadership. From the contrasting perspective of servant leadership, the leader's role is literally to serve others. The idea of servant leadership has been around for thousands of years, such as a community or serving culture, is epitomized in a world-class hotel chain like Ritz-Carlton, with its core value of ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Servant leaders develop people and helping them to strive and flourish. Servant leaders want those they serve to become healthier, wiser, freer, and more autonomous. Servant leaders serve followers, but managers are hired to contribute to organizational attainment. It would seem that these goals can be attained only by having subordinates, not followers, solving tasks that lead to productivity and effectiveness. So we move to the roles of ethics and values in organizational leadership, which will be conducted by Maria.
So there are four general categories of attitudes and behaviors seem to characterize the group. First, interpersonal behavior. Interpersonal behaviors, they show care, concern, and compassion for others. And second is basic fairness. A specific quality of their interpersonal behaviors was manifested in the fairness shown others. Third, ethical action and self-expectations. They held themselves to high ethical standards and behave consistently in both their public and private lives. And the last is articulating ethical standards. They articulated a consistent ethical vision and were uncompromising toward it and the high ethical standard it implied. Being a formal leadership role imposes unique ethical responsibilities and challenges. So, a leader more than the followers, because a leader, they possess unique degree of both legitimate and coercive power. They enjoy greater privilege. They have access to more information. They have greater authority and responsibility. They interact with a broader range of stakeholders who expect equitable treatment, and they must balance sometimes competing loyalties when making decisions. Creating and sustaining an ethical climate. So ethical climates is those in which ethical standards and norms have been consistently, clearly, and pervasively communicated throughout the organizations and embraced and enforced by organizational leaders in both word and examples. And unethical climates, those in which questionable or outright unethical behavior exists with legal action taken to correct such as behavior, or worse, where such misbehavior is even condemned. So how do leaders do this? Several fronts of leadership action are needed to establish an ethical organizational limits. Formal ethics, policies, and procedures. This includes formal statements of ethical standards and policies, along with reporting mechanism, disciplinary procedures, and penalties for suspected ethical violation. Core ideology, it is basically an organization's heart and soul. It represents the organization's purpose, guiding principles, basic identity, and most important values. Integrity. Just as personal integrity describes an individual whose outward behavior and inward values are congruent and transparent. Organizational integrity describes an organization whose pronouncements are congruent with its public and private action at every level and in every office. And it is especially important that the highest level of executive in any organization is perceived as demonstrating high integrity. Structural reinforcement. An organization's structure and system can be designed to encourage higher ethical performance and discourage unethical performance. And the last, process focus. There also needs to be explicit concern with process, not just the achievement of tangible individual, team, and organizational goals. How those goals are achieved needs to be a focus of attention and emphasis too. This is Stephen Covey. He has developed a popularized an approach called principle-centered leadership, which postulates a fundamental interdependence between the personal, the interpersonal, the managerial, and the organizational level of leadership.
Various part. So moving on to the unique role of each level may be thought of like this. There are four. The first is personal. The first imperative is to be a trustworthy person, and that depends on both one's character and competence. Only if one is trustworthy can one have trusting relationship with others. And then there are interpersonal. It is a relationship with lack trust that are characterized by self-protective efforts to control and verify each other's behavior. And then there's managerial. It is only in the context of trusting relationship will a manager risk empowering others to make full use of their talents and energies. But even with an empowering style, leading a high-performing groups depends on skills such as team building, delegation, communication, negotiation, and self-management. And last but not least is organizational. It is an organization will be most creative and productive when its structure, systems, strategy, and visions are aligned and mutually supportive. Next is, why should a company go to the trouble of creating and sustaining an ethical climate? The reason is because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes, however, it's too easy merely to assume that because something is the right thing to do, there must be some cost or disadvantage associated with it. And it's not easy to create and sustain an ethical environment in an organization. It takes convictions, diligence, and commitment. And in some ways, such continuing focus and effort can be thought of as a cost. However, such focus and effort can pay dividends beyond an intrinsic sense of satisfaction. And then there's tangible positive outcomes of an organization that creates an ethical climate. Produce greater trust within an organizations, and trust key is a key element underlying collaboration and can improve social standing and improve market share for the organization. And we came to the summary of this presentation. So to sum it all up, ethics is the branch of philosophy that deals with right behavior, and values are construct that represent a set of behaviors or general states that are considered important by values and are a central part of the physiological makeup of a leader. Values influence leadership through a cultural context in which various attributes and behavior are perceived as different positively or negatively. It is not only the content of one's belief, but one's, one's beliefs about right and wrong that is important, also how one makes moral or ethical judgment and or the way one solves moral problems, and it is important and referred to as a moral reasoning. An ethical action involves more than just the cognitive process of moral reasoning. That's why people's behavior doesn't always match how they predict they will act or with their values. And that's all for our presentation. If there's any questions you want to ask, don't hesitate to ask us. Thank you.